What's up, everybody? It's HBT with the Straight Up Wrestling Show. Man, here live, guys. Sorry that I'm a little bit late, man. I'm late, but hey, I was working on some things, trying to get some things pretty much straightened out, man, before I got on. But hey, I'm glad that I'm on. Hey, and if you come on with your comments and everything, I'm gonna try to get into your comments, man. But I'm pretty much here to talk about Cody Rhodes. Now, this right here has to do with Cody Rhodes, but it has to do mostly with his dad, man. And I'm gonna set the record straight. Set the record straight, because I wasn't able to put it all in the heading, guys, and put it all, I wasn't able to put it all in my description there. But hey, guys, I am here to set the record straight on this Dusty Rhodes situation, man. Dusty Rhodes and the WWE, back then, the WWE title, Universal title, that they said that he wanted, that he never was able to get, and his son, Cody Rhodes, was able to finish the story. I'm here to talk about that, guys. And hey, some people might not like what I say, and some people, the people that's in the know, the people that was watching wrestling back in that day, man, back when Cody Rhodes took on Bruno Sammartino up in New York, man, up in Madison Square Garden. Those people definitely will like to know, the older generation is definitely going to grab onto this, Generation X, and even the millennials and Z, man, people that's younger too. This is some information that need to get out to them, because there's a misconception. There's a misconception about Dusty Rhodes and that WWE title, which back in the day, it was called the WWWF World Title, World Heavyweight Championship. And at certain times, they will recognize the title as a world title. And I'm talking about the wrestling magazines. And the wrestling magazines was the end all when it comes to recognizing a World Heavyweight Championship. If they didn't recognize your World Heavyweight Championship, those Western magazines, those magazines, they didn't recognize your championship as a World Heavyweight Championship. It wasn't a World Heavyweight Championship. But at this time, they recognized the WWWF Championship as a World Heavyweight Championship. So I will say that in 77 they did, in 79 they didn't. So I'm gonna go back and talk about this in detail a little bit about, hey, the misconception. It's a misconception out here about Dusty Rhodes and that title. And from what I understand, after the match or before the match, Bruno Sammartino gave Dusty the title. He let Dusty hold the title. And, I guess saying, hey, you can get this title. But when it boils down to it, man, that title, which was a great title. It definitely was a great title. I'm not going to put it down or anything like that. And I have much respect for Vince McMahon Sr. Love Vince McMahon Sr. But when it boils down to it, that title was a regional title, a regional heavyweight title. No ands, ands, buts about it, guys. It was not more prestigious than the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And at that time, Dusty Rhodes was the number 1 wrestler in the world. It does not matter that Harley Race was the NWA World Champion. You had the AWA World Heavyweight Champion, that was Nick Bockwinkel at the time, and the WWWF World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. It was at that time, it was Wide World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. That was Bruno Sammartino. He held that title. Hey, even though those guys held those titles, Dusty Rhodes, outside of Andre the Giant at that time, Dusty Rhodes was the most popular wrestler in the world. And Dusty Rhodes was hot on the trails of Harley Race as far as getting that World Heavyweight Championship. Just like before Harley Race, he was hot on the trails of Terry Funk of getting that World Heavyweight Championship. Dusty Rhodes, man, was just flat out incredible. And Dusty Rhodes could go anywhere in the world, and everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew who he was. Every promotion in the country wanted Dusty Rhodes, to pretty much come into their territory. And anywhere he went, he sold out. That's the reason why he was able to go to New York. And each time he went up to New York and wrestled for that World Heavyweight Championship against Bruno Sammartino, they sold the place out each and every time. That was a sellout just by putting his name on the marquee, man. Dusty Rhodes, before social media, he didn't need social media. social media was word on the street how entertaining he was. So hey, man, it's like I said, it's a big misconception that Dusty Rhodes needed that title or wanted that title. And they played it. Hey, I understand them playing it and saying, hey, it was a title that his dad was never able to get. But man, come on, let's look at it. Let's look at it let's look at it, look at the truth of it, truth of it all. Let's look at every single thing that's involved in this. Dusty Rhodes was never signed to the WWE, WWWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the WWF. Let's just go WWF. He was not signed with that company at the time. He was still signed to the NWA Florida. He was in the Florida regional promotion. He was in that promotion, but he traveled to all the NWA cities. He traveled to Georgia. He traveled down to the Carolinas and did his things in the Carolinas and the Virginias. That was his main route right there. But he traveled around the world with Andre the Giant, traveled around the country. But his main wrestling promotion was Florida Championship Wrestling at that time. I mean, he made all kind of money wrestling in Florida, all kind of money wrestling in Georgia, all kind of money wrestling in Missouri and places like that, traveling around the country. But he was so popular. Like I said, the WWE, which was the WWWF at that time, the WWE, it like I said, it was a regional promotion. That's all it was. I don't care how much they try to play it out like it was some big, huge conglomerate or whatever. It wasn't at the time. It was in New York. That's the biggest media market in the world. It was in New York, of course. And they sold out. They sold out Madison Square Garden. They used to go down to the Washington Capitol Center at that time, sell it out. They used to go to Boston Gardens and sell it out. They used to go anywhere up there in the Northeast, man. They would sell out. They would sell out pretty much for the most part. They would. I mean, they had that on lock. But, you did have the NWA used to scurry up into that area, man. And, especially Jim Crockett Promotions, they had Philadelphia. They had New Jersey. They had certain areas up there that beat the WWE, that beat them at their own game, beat them on their own home court, home turf. That's how these wrestlers like Ric Flair and all of them had a name up there, even though they was wrestling all the way here in the Carolinas. But Dusty Rhodes, man, was huge. He was a huge name. And Vince McMahon knew who to bring up there to market up there and make and sell have a big, huge house, man. A big, huge house, bringing a lot of money. And that's the reason why he used to bring Dusty up there to wrestle Superstar Billy Graham. And I think Superstar Billy Graham went to Florida a couple times too. A bull rope match and things with Dusty Rhodes. Incredible matches. I'm not going to say incredible, but they was pretty good. But man, yeah, the misconception out here is that Dusty wanted that title. That, hey, he craved that WWE title. Maybe back in the 80s when Hogan had it. I'm talking about late 80s. Probably when it pretty much surpassed the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. But it was a long time before it surpassed that NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That NWA World Heavyweight Championship, man, that has a lineage that thing goes back. It was already at that time, the lineage to that thing actually went back to like 1901 when it boils down to it. I think the NWA actually started like 1935 or something like that, but the lineage goes back to 1901. You got to go all the way back to like George Hackenschmidt and people like that, man. Way before Lou Thez, Frank Gotch, and all those guys. Dusty Rhodes wanted to be part of that. The NWA was huge, man. The NWA was synonymous with wrestling. That's what wrestling was. And yes, I used to love the WWE, the WWWF. I used to love that. I was intrigued by it. I was intrigued by that because I didn't see it that much. And it was very hard. It was very hard for us to get any footage of the WWWF at that time. I would have to go up to New York, maybe to some relatives, to see some relatives of things like that lived up north and see it. And the AWA too. But the NWA, I could go to so many certain areas of the country, and they had NWA wrestling, or they might have not had the same region that Dusty Rhodes played in. But the thing is this: the Mid-Atlantic area always showed tape footage of Dusty Rhodes and what he was doing, going for the title, going for Terry Funk's title, or going for Harley Race's title. They always showed Jack Briscoe. They always showed these guys. And but like I said, they always showed anything important that Dusty Rhodes did. They did it in the Mid-Atlantic area. They did it in Mid-South. They did it up in Central States, up in Missouri. They did it in so many different areas. Over in Tennessee, they would show him. Down in Louisiana, they would be showing him. They would be showing Dusty Rhodes footage anytime that he went for the title. They would roll out those 8mm films and they would put it up so everybody could see what Dusty Rhodes was doing. We didn't get things from superstar Billy Graham. We didn't get things from Bruno Sammartino. We didn't get things from Bob Backlund. We didn't get that. We didn't get that. To know about that, if you lived here in the South or you lived over in the Midwest of the United States, to get footage of what was going on in WWE, superstar Billy Graham, man, that was just basically almost impossible unless you had one of them big old huge satellites. I'm talking about one of them satellites that you see at a TV station, one of those big huge satellites sitting in your yard, man. And there was a couple people I went to school with, and they had that. So I could go over every now and then and we would pick up the WWE wrestling, so I got to see it. But man, that was very hard to do. And cable just had came out, but those satellites had came out too. But you had to have a lot of money to buy one of those. Straight up. So, we would have kids that would go and we would get to see, our superstar Billy Grahams, Peter Maivia, your Chief Jay Strongbows, the people Dominic DeNucci and people like that. I got to see these people, when I was young, guys, back in the 70s, at that time. But man, that was hard to do. For the most part, what we knew about superstar Billy Graham was the magazines, man, the magazines that he was in, because we always were buying the magazines and we got to read about him and we got to see him, do his poses and things like that. And a lot of times he was on the front cover, big, strong guy, looked very good, and his promos was pretty much synonymous. For some reason, a lot of people got to hear his promos and got to hear how he talked. Well, I think a lot of that happened when he went down, because he did go down to Florida when he had that title too. He went to Florida and took on Dusty a couple times. So we got a shot of that, and they played that on NWA TV. So we did get to hear him talk, and they did promo him, and when he was coming to Florida Championship Wrestling to wrestle Dusty Rhodes. So we did get to see that, and we got to hear him talk. But as far as WWE, man, the title, it's. To me, it just looked generic compared to the NWA titles. It really did. It really did. But man, I'm being straight up. When I tell you, man, that title was not the title that Dusty Rhodes wanted. He didn't care about that title, man. He really didn't. If he was going to the WWE, of course he was going to care about the title. And did it bring a lot of money in? Yes, it did. It didn't make as much as the NWA champion, but it made a lot of money. I'm not sure exactly how much it made, but it made a lot of money. I know the AWA, whoever at that time, I think it was Nick Botwinkle. I know when Vern Gagne had it, he was making over $400,000 a year. I think Botwinkle was too. Anybody that got the AWA heavyweight championship was making $400,000 a year. NWA title brought $500,000 to $550,000, sometimes $600,000 a year at that time. Because the NWA heavyweight championship was basically the only one that was being worldwide. It was being worldwide recognized, and they was defending it in different nations. They would defend it not only in Canada. It was defended in Mexico. It was defended in Japan, and they recognized it as a world heavyweight championship. Over in Australia, New Zealand, they recognized it. In Puerto Rico, which Puerto Rico, I'm not going to call that a country. That's just territory of the United States. But it was a big travel, and a lot, hey, they got paid a lot of money. The world champions got paid a lot of money to go over there. But you never heard about superstar Billy Graham going to these other countries and defending his title. I think Nick Botwinkle traveled one place to defend his title. Now, superstar Billy Graham did go and wrestle in a couple places, but not as the world champion. They didn't recognize that as the world heavyweight championship. All right. Austin Garrett, what's up, man? Austin Garrett says, hi, how you doing, Austin Garrett? Glad that you came in, rocking with Straight Up Wrestling Show, man. Appreciate you coming in. You know, hey, don't have a lot of people right now. Got some people online, but don't have a lot of people, I guess a lot of people at work and everything like that. But that's okay. I know a lot of people going to go back and check this out, man. But straight up, I'm setting the record straight, man. Somebody has to say it. You know, that is not the title that Dusty Rhodes wanted. It's not. It's not. You know, he wanted the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Everybody wanted that. You had a lot of wrestlers who left the WWE. You know, WWF at that time, WWWF at that time, if you want to be technical about it. And they changed the initials and shortened it to the WWF. But there was wrestlers who left there because they wanted to pursue higher ground, man. They wanted to pursue bigger titles. I would even say the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship that was over in Jim Crockett Promotions was bigger than that WWE World Championship, that WWWF Championship, the one that Ric Flair used to win all the time, the one that Roddy Piper used to wear, the one that Blackjack Mulligan had, the one that Chief Wahoo McDaniel had, that United States Championship that's in the World Wrestling Federation right now that Austin Theory has wore, that Logan Paul has right now, that so many other wrestlers done had. That title right there, that United States title, that lineage goes all the way back to the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions. That was a huge title, man. That was a big-time title. And that was the next step to the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And I have to say that belt right there was bigger than the WWWF Heavyweight Championship at that time. That United States Heavyweight Championship was larger than that. It was huge. The AWA Championship was bigger than that WWWF Championship at the time. The WWWF was only 14 years old. 14 years old. That company had been in existence since 1963. It was 1977. So pretty much you could say it was a baby company, man. You know, compared to the AWA, the NWA, especially NWA and AWA, it was like a new promotion. So hey, man, the AWA hadn't been around that long, but I think it had been around since the 50s or whatever. But the NWA been around a long time, and had legendary people who had already held that title by that Superstar Billy Graham was defending against Dusty Rhodes. But man, either way it go, great matchup. And like I say, man, I was very, I love Vince McMahon Sr. Love him. I thought he did something outstanding to be able to hold a promotion that big in New York City and nobody else really challenged him. You know, he pretty much engulfed New York, that area up there, New York, Rhode Island, or whatever. The New England area, that was his. And yes, the NWA used to run cards up there and was very successful doing it. But still, it was the WWWF area. And I think the NWA was set in stone at that time because a lot of people had remembered before the WWWF was not, they was part of the NWA or they was not established as a company yet. And people remember the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance. It was the number one promotion in the country. So they already had a foothold up there in New York. Straight up. All right, my man, Austin Garrett. Cody Rhodes is WWE champion now. Yes, he is. 100% the WWE champion. And wow, man, look, when it boils down to it, great, great that he's the champion. Great accomplishment. I'm so happy for Cody Rhodes. Very happy for Cody Rhodes. But man, yeah, his father never was vying for that championship. I wish they wouldn't play it like that, but I can understand them playing it on pretty much. I can understand them using that as a storyline. But man, it's just so many people out here are fooled. They really are. His dad was never able to get it. His brother was never able to get it. Now, I understand. Dustin Rhodes, when he wrestled over in the WWE, the WWF, he was over there when it's called the WWF. Goldust was never able to get it. I can understand them going that route because he wrestled there, and that was even when he wrestled there, that was the premier championship to get in the world. You could throw in the IWGP championship, IWGP Championship. You can throw in the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, ECW World Heavyweight Championship, or what ECW Championship, or whatever. Any indies, big indies, or whatever. Throw in anybody's championship. The WWE World Heavyweight Championship was the premier championship in the world at the time. Dustin Rhodes was over there, campaigning, being a competitor, being one of the top contenders for that title. That was the premier championship. And of course, he was not able to garner it. He never was able to win that thing. I can understand that. Man, why in the world is my... I'm about to put on some chapstick or something, guys. Sorry about that. But hey, man, straight up. And Dusty Rhodes was over, of course, Dusty Rhodes came over in the late 80s, I think early 90s or whatever. And he was in the polka dots, man. Polka dots. Dusty was way past his prime. Dusty was used as a mid-carder. I'm talking about a mid-carder right in the middle. Dusty was not looked at as a contender. Dusty was a sideshow act when it boils down to it. He really was. And, very popular. Everybody knew who he was. Hold on for a second, guys. Yo, man.
Well, this family all fucked up.
Man, don't, man. I'm online. You know that, right?
Oh,
yeah, I'm online, man. I'm online, finish it up. I'm almost done with it, man. I'm online, man. Setting the record straight, man. Setting the record straight with this Cody Rhodes thing, man. Setting the record straight with, let's see. You got to go on there, man. I thought you knew about it. Setting the record straight about Dusty and the WWF title, now known as the WWE Universal Championship. That's what I'm online talking about right now, man.
Oh, okay. Well, set it straight, man.
Yeah, I'm setting it straight, man. There's a misconception. Stay online, but stay online. Let's yeah, I'm setting it straight, man. Setting the record straight. Everybody need to know, man. Everybody need to know that WWWF, that's what it was, the WWWF World Heavyweight Championship. That was a regional championship. That's all it was. And Dusty Rhodes was the number one contender at that time to the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He was hot on Harley Race's trail at that time. He was, before that, he was hot on, he was the number one contender for Terry Funk's World Heavyweight Championship. He was after that like crazy. And, Terry Funk did everything. He did everything to stop Dusty Rhodes. Had him attacked, had his arm broke, and then still wrestled him. Dusty still wrestled that match, trying to win that World Heavyweight Championship. Now, as far as Superstar Billy Graham's championship, that WWWF World Heavyweight Championship, man, yes. And that's the same one that Roman wears. Yeah, I'm sure Dusty would have liked to have it. But at the time, like I'm telling everybody here, Dusty Rhodes was the biggest, he was the biggest name in wrestling outside of Andre the Giant. Dusty Rhodes was worldwide traveled. Dusty Rhodes used to go anywhere and they would book him anywhere. He would sell out. Just like, he sold out Madison Square Garden anytime he went up to wrestle Superstar Billy Graham. That's the reason why Vince McMahon Jr. called down to Mike Graham to bring him up there, because he knew he would sell it out. Dusty Rhodes was bigger, man. He was bigger. He was huge. So I'm like, why would Dusty Rhodes want that title over the NWA title, which was the premier championship in the world? The WWWF Championship, that belt was not recognized outside of New York, outside of the New England area, New York, Boston, let's see, Rhode Island, Connecticut. It was not recognized outside of that area as the World Heavyweight Championship. The NWA even had a stronghold on Philadelphia at that time, a stronghold on New Jersey at that time. Jim Crockett Promotions had a strong hold on it at that time. But, man, Dusty was so huge. He was just so popular. But, yeah, his thing was the NWA World Championship, not that WWE Championship. And he was able to achieve that a couple years later in 79. No, not in 1979. In 1981, it was 4 years later. He became World Heavyweight Champion, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, something that he vied for so long. And man, if he wasn't going up against a giant in Harley Race, he would have been won. He would have been took that title. Ben held that title. So man, I'm just flabbergasted. But hey, like I said, hey, it's all a storyline, and you have to look at Gold Dust, Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes was not able to win that WWE WWF World Heavyweight Championship when it was the premier championship. That did become the premier championship of the world. Dusty Rhodes finally came in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was wrestling with the WWF, the WWE, and it was the premier championship of the world. But we both know that Dusty Rhodes, he was past his prime, way past his prime. And so, yeah, he definitely wasn't going to win it then. But man, yeah, that's just something, guys. I wanted to get that out here, that about Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes, hey, I'm sure he would have been happy to win that title, but it would have been just, yeah, it would have added to his legacy. I agree with that, Christopher Burton. No ands, ands, and buts about that. It would have added to his legacy. But man, to me, I mean, it would have been just like him holding the Florida Heavyweight Championship. Because with the Florida Heavyweight Championship, I'm not going to say it was bigger than, that region was bigger than the New York region, because that WWE, like I said, it was a conglomerate, a lot of different, those states up there. Florida Heavyweight Championship, just Florida and, down in Georgia. But, man, yeah, like you say, it would add to his legacy, Chris, because he would go down as a WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He would have went down as that. And plus he would have had, a little bit later, probably won the NWA Heavyweight Championship. So it would have added to his legacy. Man. But yeah, it's just out.
And that could have even, if you would have won it, that would have solidified the Rhodes name in WWE history. That would put a stamp on it.
Well, it definitely would have. It definitely would have. But you know what? When it boils down to it, now, why was Cody's run so successful? I mean, not so successful. So, it was so, people were so heartfelt about it because they know. And that's how big Dusty Rhodes was, man. And that's how big his legacy carries on. Even though he never had that WWE World Heavyweight Championship, it was all about him when it boils down to it. And Cody winning it because his dad was not able to win it. His dad never held it. So they used that, and they knew that Dusty Rhodes' name, that shows you how big he was. And thank you for calling, Chris, man, because I really didn't get that off. But that shows you how big Dusty Rhodes was in the world of professional wrestling. Because remember, when he went up there and became a full-time wrestler, he was basically a mid-carder. He was a mid-carder in polka dots. That's all he was. All he was.
Yeah.
But
at that point, he could do that.
Exactly. He could do that, and it still didn't mess with his legacy. His legacy was so strong that he was able to do that.
And it was so funny because before he died, he still don't know if it was a joke to wear the polka dots, either from Vince McMahon or Pritchard or who it was.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. To this, the day he died, he never figured out if it was a joke or what.
Wow, man.
Okay, if this is what y'all gonna make. Yeah, don't forget polka dots. Okay, I'm gonna make it work.
Wow, man. Wow.
And he did, man. He did. He made it work.
Yes, he did. Stephen Larry, sup, Harry? Who you like to see face Sheamus? Man, look, I would like to see Sheamus pretty much get in line, be the first probably one of the first people get in line for Cody Rhodes Championship. Straight up. All right, Richie Matthews, sup, Harry and Chris. All right, Chris, hold on for a second, man. You gonna stay online for a minute? I'm gonna put you on the speaker.
Yeah.
Put you on the speaker. All right, guys, give me just a second. I'm gonna put him on speaker, guys, so y'all can hear him better. Let's see.
Powering on. Welcome to Alltech Lansing.
Keep an eye on this time here. Okay, 37. All right, Mr. Burton, I got you on speaker now. All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Ben Miller's in the house. Richie Matthews in the house now. Ben Miller says, "Sup, Harry and Chris." All right.
What's up?
All right. Ben Miller says Gunther versus Sheamus. Oh, Gunther versus Sheamus. Yeah, that'd be very good. But one thing, what we need to do, guys, and I'm gonna go ahead and venture away a little bit about what I was talking about. Since you guys coming in here and you guys are talking about this stuff, as far as Gunther and Sheamus, I think it'd be very good. One thing we need to do, and one thing I think Triple H needs to do, I think he needs to be very patient with his roster. and how he navigates things.
Yeah.
Don't give us the biggest matches just yet. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do it for your big shows. You do got Backlash coming up. So Sheamus and Gunther for Backlash only will be great. But like I said, yeah, Cody Rhodes, man. Cody Rhodes, you have got to give Cody Rhodes. Don't give him the biggest opponent. Don't give him the biggest opponent yet. Don't give him Gunther. You know, which a lot of people, Cody and Gunther. No, don't give him Gunther. You know, me and Chris.
They want that rematch, man. They want that rematch from last year's Clash of Champions.
Yeah.
Clash of Captains.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Oh yeah.
But now they don't think got title no more. It's really just basically a grudge match. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nothing at stake. There's really nothing to really push that thing, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Sheamus at the time, that was the only thing he needed to become a Grand Slam champion was beat Gunther and get the IC title.
Yeah.
He would have been a Grand Slam champion.
Oh yeah.
Now, like I said, Gunther ain't got the title. What you fighting? I mean, what's the point besides just having a hard hitting match? That's all you're doing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Let's just be real about it.
That's true. All right, Ben Miller says, I'm not saying now, Harry. I understand, Ben. Okay, cool. But someone needs to. Okay, Ben, let me put you on screen, man. I'm scrunching my eyes, checking this thing out. My man Ben says, But Sheamus need to.
Sure he didn't say that.
Yeah, no, he didn't say that. But Sheamus need to get his revenge on Gunther. That's true. That's true. But man, hey, Gunther, they got to build Gunther back up. And like I say, you got to make both of those guys look very strong. Sheamus coming back. He is a strong wrestler. Man, let Sheamus have this last big, huge run and something. Ben Miller said, save it for SummerSlam. Gunther versus Sheamus. Yeah, one of the two, man. Backlash, even he can do it in Backlash. But you could continue it on up into SummerSlam. You really can. I mean, either way it go, I think it's going to be something special. But yeah, Triple H, man, has a great opportunity. Right now is the time. And I've been thinking about this, Chris. I do think it's good that he's using these NXT guys that he's using. I really do. But he with these NXT guys, he's got to be very strategic with that too. You know, put him against other mid-carders, man. Put him against mid-card guys that's already on the main roster. Like that was good. Ilya Dragunov against Shinsuke, but you don't want to make Shinsuke look weak. So you put Shinsuke against somebody like Johnny Gargano. You understand what I'm saying?
Better yet, you could even put him on speed. You can put him on speed. I want to say on TikTok. I mean on X. Put him on speed. Yeah, you can. You definitely can. But like you say, you still can intermix some of those guys up. Like I say, some of those NXT guys that he consistently brings up, you definitely can still use them on that on the main roster, because you got to have your main roster people like Drew McIntyre. You got to have Sheamus, Seth freaking Rollins when he come back. You got to continue to let these people look strong. You know, even if you bring them up against these NXT guys, and these NXT guys say if they come up and they lose to these guys, then you'd be like, oh, okay, he's supposed to lose. He's coming from NXT. But you have somebody like Ilya Dragunov go up there and beat Shinsuke, or Ilya Dragunov, who's the champion there. Hey, he's coming up, man. So yeah, of course he's supposed to beat Bronson Reed. You understand what I'm saying? He can come up and beat Bronson Reed. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's got to be very strategic with it, man. But yeah, I understand what everybody's saying, guys. But yeah, just going back a little bit about this Cody Rhodes thing, Dusty Rhodes thing. I'm just gonna pretty much lay it out here, man. When it boils down to it, Dusty Rhodes, he wanted that NWA championship. It was the premier championship in the world at that time, and he was able to get that world championship, that NWA world championship. And he was he was actually a 3-time NWA world heavyweight champion. So he got to the pinnacle of his success when he won it in 81 and he won it in 83. When he won it those 2 years, it still was the number one championship in the world. 85, I really can't say at that time. It was a toss up between that one and the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, because Hulk Hogan was the champ at that time. And Hulk Hogan, even though he wasn't traveling around the world like Ric Flair, his name was in this country was bigger than Ric Flair's. It got bigger than Ric Flair's because they had that machine behind him. Was it around 85, Chris? Rock and roll.
That They had
between 80 late 83 to about 85. Late 83, almost 84 to 85.
Yeah, I say 85. Yeah, Hulk Hogan was more known than Ric Flair at that time, and yeah, his title, you could actually say that title, and that was Dusty Rhodes won it again in 85. And I'm going to say that the WWE title was more important at that time than the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. But Dusty's first 2 reigns, it was the #1 title in the world, man. So I have got to say Dusty Rhodes, he achieved his goal. That was the big thing. He was the biggest champion in the world. Everybody knew who he was. And better believe when Hulk Hogan had that title, the majority of people that you speak to about Hulk Hogan, you can say something about Dusty Rhodes, they would know who he is. Now, they might have not have seen him wrestle, but they heard that name. Anybody, as far as grown-ups, they've heard that name, Dusty Rhodes. And, they probably know 80, 90% of them at that time. If you knew who Hulk Hogan was, even if you never saw Dusty Rhodes wrestle, you heard that name before. Kind of like Ric Flair. You might have never seen him wrestle, but you saw him in a doggone grocery store or something. I'm talking about saw him on the magazine. You saw Dusty Rhodes on the magazine. Just like that, just like here.
I ain't never seen Dusty Rhodes no grocery store.
Not personally, man. Of course not. But yeah, just like here, man. None of us, we knew Superstar Billy Graham for the magazine covers. We knew Superstar Billy Graham when he went down to Florida to wrestle Dusty Rhodes because they were so successful with their matches up there in New York that Mike Graham brought it down to Florida, and they had those bull rope matches and things like that. And that's when we got to see Superstar Billy Graham. Every NWA territory down here in the Carolinas, up there in Missouri, man, up in the Central States area, down in Tennessee, they was playing it in, Tennessee, Memphis area, man. They playing it down in Mid-South, down in Louisiana. They played it on TV. They was playing it on those 8mm. We got to see him talk. We got to see him do his poses and things like that. That's how we knew who Superstar Billy Graham was. Only way you got to see WWE wrestling at that time, WWWF wrestling at that time. Like I said, you had to have a friend or somebody who had one of those big, huge satellites out in their yards. And I'm talking about the satellites that you see at TV stations now, one of them huge ones. And you got so many channels around the world, and they was free back then. I would go to some friends' houses, we would pile up, and we got to see the WWF at that time. The World Wrestling Federation, we got to see it. Why World Wrestling Federation? We got to see it, man. And I was very intrigued by it. It was just something totally different. They wrestled in a different style than the NWA. And like Chris talked about, headlocks and takedowns and pretty much put somebody in a abdominal stretch. They did that up in New York, but they didn't do as much of it. It was more kick, power game. Who can be thrown around, kick, punch, elbow smashes. That's what it was, and I'm talking about forearm elbow smashes. That's what it was in the WWE. And it pretty much changed over in the 80s, and it basically was the same thing. That's why you saw all the champions, Hulk Hogan and all those guys use that same formula. And Vince stuck to that formula. His dad used that formula, and Vince McMahon Jr. stuck to that formula. So it was basically the same thing. It was a different brand of wrestling than it was here. Here in down south, and Chris, we're more patient than people up north anyway. When it boils down to it, in everyday life, Southerners, we're slow when it boils down to it. They look at us as slow. Hey, I know I talk faster than a lot of New Yorkers. I have friends from New York and stuff would come down here and they would talk, and my friends used to look at me at school and stuff. They would look at me to say what they were saying. But, most of them, I talk faster than most people from New York. I talk faster than a lot of people from up north. But when it boils down to it, man, it was a different style of wrestling. Like I said, it was kick, punch, elbows, picking you up, throwing you around. And I'm talking about the power game of Superstar Billy Graham, Ivan Putski, and people like that. It was fun to watch, man. It really was. And you had people that was from here, from down south, that wrestled mostly in the southern region of the country, would go up there and was very successful. People like Stan the Man Hansen and people like that. He was very successful when he went up there. Because he was all about power wrestling, basically power brawling when it boils down to it. He would take your head off with clotheslines and things like that.
Well, he scared me.
Yeah, that joke.
That bull rope, tobacco hanging out his mouth. Boy.
Yeah, that cowbell on the end of that bull rope. Yeah, and you believed everything he said.
And that joker used to be talking, that tobacco be spitting out his mouth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a big man. He's a big man. So I'm just like, yeah, you believed everything that Texan said, man. He's gonna get you. He's gonna get you.
But he used to kill me, had that tobacco hanging out of his mouth. I was like, God.
You know, and he looked
interviews with Mean Gene, but just be talking and spitting out that tobacco juice.
Heck yeah, he legitimately, man, broke dang on Bruno's neck. Well, he fractured it in 2 places, vertebrae, but that's a legit injury. But you know, he did that on a slam. He picked him up, did some kind of sidewall slam, and it hurt his neck. And then he did hit him with a clothesline. But you know, and Stan Hansen went with that. They went with that storyline for a long time, man. I broke Bruno's neck. Joe was crazy.
Well, you gotta think now. Too, on top of that, how long did Stan work over in Japan? How many years was he over there?
Gosh, man, a lot of years, man. A lot of years.
And you know, they make serious contact over there.
Oh yeah. He married a Japanese girl, man. He learned how to speak Japanese over there.
So you know, him and Vader, that was right down their alley, man.
Oh yeah, big time. All right, Ben Miller said, save it for SummerSlam, Gunther versus Sheamus. All right. Ben Miller says, just like Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov. Yes. Sup, Harry and Chris? I hear rumors that the NXT can be part of the third brand. It needs to be. It definitely needs to be, Rick Perry. Glad that you're in, Rick Perry. Rick says, but we got the. Yeah, Chris said, "What's up, Rick?" He heard you. All right, Rick says, but we got the draft also on April 25th, April 25th and 27th. Yeah, look, man, I wish they would prolong that thing for another month. I really did. All right, Stephen Larry, prolong the draft. I wish they would prolong it, but man.
That is on my birthday.
Yeah, that thing's coming up. Stephen Larry, Harry, you see, I think Sean can do something around the next pay-per-view. Nakamura is the one who calls Dragunov with his match versus Trick Williams, unless he relinquishes the belt to be drafted to Raw. Yeah, that'd be very interesting, man. All right, Perry Carey says, sup, Harry and Chris. Sup, Perry Carey, my man. All right, guys, but I tell you what, man, I'm going to get off here because me and Chris, we're going to come on in just a little while, guys. We're going to do some indie stuff. But, guys, look for us again around 4:30. We'll be coming back on. But, guys, I'm going to get off right now, man. I just wanted, like I said, I wanted to set the record straight, man. I had to set the record straight that, hey, look, I'm just being straight up, man. I do think Dusty would have loved to have that title, but Dusty wasn't going to stop traveling, guys. Just put it that way. He was not gonna just sit around and be in the WWWF territory up there in the Northeast. He was not. Dusty Rhodes was a traveler. He made a lot of money, and Mike Graham gave him the freedom to do that. And you know, as much as I like Vince McMahon Sr., Vince McMahon Sr. did some shady things back in the day, man. He did some shady things. Wasn't as bad as his son. His son learned from him. But he did some shady stuff when it comes to a lot of his performers and things like that. And he was known for punishing people too that went outside of the company and did things. So, you know, he didn't have contracts with them, but he expected them just to work for that territory. And Dusty was not going to do that. Dusty wasn't going to do that. Dusty was the worldwide known, man. And he would go and work. He would be signed.
Well, he knew he wasn't going to do that.
Yeah,
he knew he wasn't going
exactly. Yeah, he was even though he was signed to Florida Championship Wrestling, you know, Dusty Rhodes, he would go to all the NWA territories, of course. He would go to the AWA and wrestle. He would go and wrestle in Stampede or whatever over in Canada he would wrestle in. Wrestling in their territories, which a lot of NWA territories was there, and Stampede, and I forgot Maple Leaf Wrestling. And then he would go down to Australia. He would go to New Zealand. He would go wherever it took. But Dusty Rhodes, that's how he got his name out. But he was always traveling with Andre the Giant. Him, Ernie Ladd, Ric Flair, all those guys. They always traveled with Andre and got worldwide famous. So, hey, man. But yeah, Dusty was not going to stay still, and I'm pretty sure.
No, he was not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're right, Chris. But I'm pretty sure that that's what Vince McMahon Sr. would have wanted him to do, because all his guys stayed put. I mean, he was really upset with Rocky Soulman Johnson when he left and became Sweet Ebony Diamond, came down to Carolinas and all that. He came back, he wanted to punish him. That's where Vince McMahon Sr. That's where Vince McMahon Sr. got all that from. Bruno Sammartino, Bruno Sammartino left and couldn't come back for 2 years.
Well, Bruno actually had a bad relationship with WWE for a long time.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
And it really didn't get resolved until he got inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's when they had to do all that apologizing and patchwork and everything.
Yeah, between 61 to 63, because he came back in 63. He worked for him when he started, and then Vince McMahon put his name out there at that time in 61, and he couldn't work for anywhere. What's name had to go work as a laborer for he worked as a laborer for like a year, like almost a year and a half. He went over to San Francisco and everything. He tried to go to San Francisco, went to certain places because he didn't like how everything was working in the WWE. And Vince McMahon Sr. called around, man, and pretty much double, changed his booking up in Baltimore, San Francisco, and a couple places, and got him doggone suspended in all these different territories, man. There was WWE territories at that time, and were AWA territories. They weren't NWA territories, but he wasn't able to, and the NWA wouldn't touch him either because remember, Vince McMahon Sr. was still, even though he had left the NWA, he still had relationship with those guys. So his name carried a lot of weight, and then he took him back in '63. The photographer for the WWWF was able to get him back in, and then he was a champ from '63 to '71. And in the 71, after he up and left for a couple of years. Well, he not up and left. He up and left for just a little while. I want to expand my horizons. I want to go work here, work there. And he went and done that. And Vince McMahon suspended him again. And then brought him back in 73. Yeah, it's funny, man. It's funny. Yeah, he did some stuff to Bruno Sammartino. Vince McMahon Sr. It's a trip. I didn't know all that stuff that he did. I was just like, wow. I was like, wow, this dude's a trip, man. He's just like his son. Well, I ain't gonna say he's just like his son, but he did, like I say, he did some shady stuff too. That's all it is to it. He wasn't, his son's not the only one. But guys, we'll be back in a little while. Talk to you guys a little while, man. Hey, before you leave, you're on Facebook, hit that like, share, join, guys. If you're on YouTube, hit that like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, ding, 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 so you know when we're on like times like these. And if you over on Twitch, you do the same thing that you do on YouTube. And man, if you see us over on X, formerly known as Twitter, hit that like, share, tweet, and retweet. What else, Mr. Christopher Burton?
Follow Straight Up Wrestling Show.
No doubt about it. Tobin Cruz in the house. What's up, Tobin? Says history repeats itself. Remind me of AEW. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. AEW, man. Wow. I was listening to a lot of people. I listened to Magnum TA today on AEW. He talked about that. I listened to Jim Cornette today on that. Man, he was all talking about that. That junk is crazy. Talking about, man, dude never learns, man. I mean, people don't learn. Hey, WCW did the same thing. AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, Tobin says. Okay, yeah. New Japan Pro Wrestling, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan greased their palms, man. Put that title on John Moxley.
Oh, yeah.
Why in the world? Why in the world would they do that, man? Come on, straight up. Richie Matthews says, yeah. All right, Richie says, Harry and Chris. Yes, sir. All right, Richie, Tobin, I appreciate you guys coming in. Perry Carey, Stephen, Larry, man, all you guys, man, I appreciate you coming in. Who else done came in? Let's see. Dan Miller come through. I appreciate each and every one of y'all coming through, man, rocking with the Straight Up Wrestling Show this afternoon. Let's see. And my man, Austin Garrett. Appreciate each and every one of you guys coming through 100%. But me and Christopher Burton got some things to talk about, and we'll see you guys in just a little while. Later. Peace.